I don't know about you guys, but it's just one of those days where I was like, yeah, I'm okay to film, but I just got over being sick and I'm exhausted. So that's why we look like this today. But nonetheless, we have a video today. So come and join me on this magnificent journey. Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Amber Rose, also known as the Religious Hippie. You can basically follow me on any social media platform, or you can go straight to my website at thereligioushippie.com. On my website, you'll find economy rosaries, haters will be prayed for, prayer journals, and tumblers. By donating and receiving one of those items, you are helping my ministry stay afloat, and I really appreciate it. And if you cannot donate financially, liking, subscribing, and sharing really helps us with the algorithm. Thanks, guys. So today's video is the last video in our 7 Deadly Sins series. I know, it feels like it took forever to get to the end, but now that we are, I'm like, oh, that was so fun. But this is the last one, so we're talking about greed. Now, when someone tells me they struggle with greed or they just say the word greed, the first thing I think of is money. Money! Like people are cheating or stealing or something in order to get money that's not theirs, like it's not owed to them, and yet they're getting more money than they should. It's like they become obsessed with money to the point of causing harm to others just so that they can have more money. However, did you know that there are milder forms of greed, such as purchasing things that you don't need, impulse buying? And we all know that if you have Amazon or you guys do any kind of online shopping, impulse buying is something we are all guilty of. And then I usually return mine within like 3 days because I'm like, I don't actually need this. What the heck? It can also be loving items you own immoderately. So you like an item or you love an item so much that you could never part with it, even to the detriment of your own health or others. I don't know if you guys ever watched Hoarders on TLC, but growing up, I used to watch this show and it used to make me feel so good about the way I was living because I was like, oh, at least I'm not that bad of like, you know, all of this. But in reality, those people are suffering. Like, this is an actual problem. And while people who have greed aren't always necessarily hoarders, usually the two kind of tie in with each other. St. Thomas Aquinas defines greed as an immoderate love of possessions, and it also has 6 daughters, which are fraud, lying, perjury, dissatisfaction or restlessness, violence, and hard-heartedness. I think all of those are pretty straightforward, but we'll run through them just really quick. Basically, you would commit fraud to create more money. You start lying to people to get to more money, like you worked more hours than you did, or you didn't do as good of a job as you said. You know, there's like certain ways you can get money and lie about it. I think a lot of internet influencers are guilty of this, where they will sell a product to their viewers and stuff and be like, oh, it's so great. I think the Kylie Cosmetics is a great example of that, where she had like this whole cosmetic line and everything, and it ended up being like terrible quality. They lie a lot for stuff, and yeah, just kind of like that. Perjury is when you lie after taking an oath or affirmation. Dissatisfaction is when you always want what other people have and you're never satisfied with the things that you do have. Violence is kind of self-explanatory. People are willing to kill or invoke violence on others for money. And then of course, hard-heartedness is kind of think of like the Scrooge from A Christmas Story, where they don't want to share with anyone, they're not willing to give to the poor, that type of thing. I think we all kind of struggle with some sort of greed just because we live in such a materialistic world. There are so many things that we have access to at the tips of our fingers. And so because of that, we've become very greedy with our time, our money, items we have. It's kind of running rampant these days, especially on social media, because you see the latest outfit, the latest makeup, the newest trend, the latest haircut, all of these things, and like you have to have it right then and there. And when you do those things and you get it and you're like, oh, well, that was cool, you know, and you might like it for a little bit, but you don't feel satisfied, because greed doesn't satisfy us. What actually satisfies us is when we control our will and we control our flesh and we give to people. Giving does way more than receiving for us. So how do we defeat this? Obviously, confession. I've said this about the last 7 deadly sins, and I'm saying it for the final time. Confession. That is going to be your number one defense against Satan. Next, you're going to want to cultivate a life of generosity and gratitude. I feel like there are so many things we could be grateful for these days, but we aren't, because we just look at what our neighbor has and we're like, oh, I want that. But we have so much more. And I think it's just really important to remember that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake. So before you buy something, ask yourself, is this a want or is this a need? And sometimes if you're really struggling and you're a compulsive buyer online, what I like to do is I like to add things to my cart when I feel that impulse to buy stuff, but then I don't buy it. Instead, I wait a day or two and then I go back to my cart and I look at it and I'm like, okay, I don't need this. I don't even like that, but it was just a trend. And so it kind of helps me the next day to clear my mind and have some distance. And then if there's something that I actually did need in my cart, I can then go through and like buy it. Of course, I can always return it and things, but I definitely think Amazon and a lot of places makes it too easy to just buy, and then return. So I really want to be intentional about the things that I'm buying. I want to be intentional about the things that I'm using. And so because of that, I've really cut down on online spending. And instead what I've done is I've gone out to shop at small boutiques and small places that I think really need business these days, are local stores. You can also cultivate this lifestyle of gratitude and generosity through helping the poor, help out a soup kitchen, donate your clothes. I think helping those who are less fortunate than us is a really great way to cultivate a life of giving, but generosity, because you become more appreciative of the things that you do have. And when you become more appreciative of those things, you're less likely to abuse the materialistic things that you do have. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. When I was really little, my mom used to take my sister and me to this soup kitchen with these nuns, and they would teach us how to cook food and prepare the food for the homeless. I was probably about 5 or 6 and the apron did not fit me at all. And I had like giant plastic gloves on because they said like, oh, you should wear gloves when you're making the food and all this stuff. And so I remember just like standing there and trying to cut a carrot. She gave me a butter knife because she didn't trust me with a sharp knife. Honestly, props to her. I wouldn't trust me with a sharp knife either. I was 5. Who knows what I could have done. And at that time, I didn't completely understand why we were doing it. But as I got older, I had a deep appreciation for helping those who are in need and the homeless. And so now that's something I do my best to do as often as I can, whether that's getting gift cards for the homeless and giving it to them. I don't give the homeless cash. It's just in Chicago, I can't do that because I feel like if I do that, they could be using it for drugs. You never know. But I do give them gift cards. If they're nearby, I'll be like, hey, do you want a Dunkin' Donuts? Like you can pick out what you want. Or like there was this one time I was in Wisconsin and there was this elderly man who was homeless and he asked if I had any food. And I said, no, I don't have any food, but I'm going to eat. Did you want something? Like I'll bring it back to you. And so he asked for a sandwich. And so I ordered the sandwich for him and then I gave it to him on my way back to my car and I'm like, here you go. And he was really appreciative. So there, you kind of have to feel it out. Please trust your gut if you don't feel safe. But I definitely think those are some of the better ways we can help the homeless without feeding any kind of addictions they may have. So anyways, growing up, going to the soup kitchens and stuff, it really instilled in me a very important, memory or something about generosity and how important that is for people, being able to help the less fortunate. And it was also because it wasn't like Feed My Starving Children where you go and you package it up for children, in different countries. That's still wonderful to do. Highly suggest that. I actually saw the people I was serving and you could see how beat down they were, how hungry they were. And you can see in their eyes like this defeat. But as soon as they had like a hot meal in their stomach and, they got like little presents or something, they were able to like get back up and fight another day. And it was really sad because when I was working at the soup kitchen last year, there was a gentleman who has actually killed, unfortunately, in a horrific way, who was a homeless man who was a regular because he was on the streets and there was a turf war and unfortunately he lost his life because of it. And so we miss him very dearly because he was such a sweet soul. And it just goes to show how, these little wars are happening in our cities each and every day. So we really need to pray for them and also help them in safe environments. So combating greed is a struggle, don't get me wrong, but the things that I mentioned above are going to be some of the most important things you do to help combat greed. But then also starting a gratitude journal every single day in the morning and in the evening or once a day, whatever works. Write down at least 10 things that you're thankful for that day. It could be food. your eyesight, a specific thing. And thank God for those things, because truly we are in his hands. And so our lives are in his hands. And so we need to be very grateful for the things that he's given us, because even when things seem really bad, there is always something to be grateful for. And if you want to do something else really special, you can donate your time and energy to crisis pregnancy centers. I think that's a wonderful way to give back to these mothers who are clearly struggling and for their babies, and to give them that support and to give them the resources that they need in order to have a healthy baby and for them to be healthy. I think that's so important. So many resource centers. I believe it was Timmery who said, I think it was over like $300 million was given to women in need this year, or last year, 2023. Happy New Year, guys, by the way. That was all from just generous donations and people helping. And I think that's just beautiful. Like, we're helping women, and that is so important. And I wish more people knew about crisis pregnancy centers, because Planned Parenthood is not going to tell you about them. So if you can, donate your time, energy, and money into the crisis pregnancy centers, because those mamas and babies will thank you. You can also do charitable work for your church. Ask your priest, like, hey, I'm really skilled in this area. Is there anything that I can do to help the church? Whether that's cleaning or organizing or anything, just ask. And a priest will really appreciate that. And he'll probably end up being like, yeah, we have like this and that. So there's a lot of things you can do to help the church or to help your community. So in a world that constantly tells you you're not good enough unless you have the latest car or outfit, be content with the blessings that God has given you, because a spirit of generosity is worth way more than anything the world can offer. And with all of that being said, guys, that is it for today's video. I'm so sad that the 7 Deadly Sins series is over. Maybe I'll do the 7 cardinal virtues. Let me know below if that's something you want me to do. But yeah, going into 2024, this is a huge year for all of us. I know that God is going to do wonderful things in all of your guys' lives, but there's just going to be so many changes with the ministry, good ones. Don't get, like, we're not changing anything, but you know what I mean. Like, we're going to be able to reach more people, and there's going to be a lot more exciting things coming out in this coming year. So stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye. I just want to go home.